Kingdoms rise and empires crumble, and the knowledge and wisdom from past ages are lost to the foggy ruins of time. But for genuine seekers of truth, one place stands alone on a hill. Shining brightly in the darkness, you, dear listener, have reached the Hidden Citadel.
Hey, welcome.
Yes.
To the Hidden Citadel.
Yes. You
yes,
found us.
And we are going to be talking about the thing that got me into weird stuff, and probably Greg too, because this was part of our Reader's Digest Strange Stories and Amazing Facts book.
Yep.
And what I found so interesting is when I was looking this up, doing research on this, it turned out that some British guy that I was watching his video on this topic also was quoting from our Strange Stories and Amazing Facts book. And that just made my soul so happy.
Awesome.
So, today's topic is Spring-Heeled Jack. And there is an article on the website, hiddencitadel4.wordpress.com, if you would like to go watch or read what some of my thoughts about Spring-Heeled Jack. And I'm going to click over to this image of Spring-Heeled Jack that I made up for the article. I think I have two articles on Spring-Heeled Jack. One of them I put was like one of the first articles I uploaded, but this article that I uploaded actually focuses more on the mechanism of his flame throwing. As a person who is a fire-breathing performer, or used to be anyway, I was very interested in how he was spitting fire at his victims and the result of them. But we're going to get into that, and we're going to get all sorts of stuff. But first, Greg, tell us what you know about Spring-Heeled Jack.
Well, it's interesting because I really didn't know anything about him until you said you looked him up. What's so cool though is I listened to that whole thing, and I don't know where you're going with it.
Okay.
But there's so many elements of him that interweave into many just of the dynamic kind of biblical presence, like for instance, like the Shining. There's an element of he's like a shining one, that he's wearing this either this uniform or something about him. There's the red eyes. There's the humanoid. There's when it said he could like leap and move, and you know what the first thing I thought of is when in the temptation of the Christ. The devil took him to the top of the highest mountain.
That's true.
Took him to the top of the
instantly.
Took
him up onto the top of the temple.
Highest temple. Like that's a moving of sorts from low to high. Then you have the fire, and fires are very much a part of the angelic expression. How
that's true.
They are. I mean, they're not only the shining ones. There's when those I think those Assyrians were wiped out. They were wiped out with those two angels came in and took out 180,000 of whatever it was. How was that done? They were wiped out with like a nuclear.
They got them somehow.
Yes.
Yeah. Same way with Sodom and Gomorrah.
Whenever the angelic beings or things of celestial beings are depicted, particularly in Daniel, burnished bronze. Bronze, like burnishing is doing what?
That's true.
Burnishing is doing what to bronze?
There's polishing it up, and you heat it in the fire.
You heat it in the fire, right?
Yeah.
Then you have, just those elements of he's got all these things, and then what's interesting, I was like, then I thought for a second, I was like, what if it's like Cain? What if the whole thing about Cain? That Cain's immortal, but the mark of Cain is this shiny thing that people are afraid of. That he can go and he can harm people, because that's what Cain does.
Yeah.
Cain harms. Cain bludgeons, by the way.
That's true.
And what did he do? He went and he was almost an
Yeah.
enemy to others. It's like I was like, kind of
So-
going through. Go ahead.
I want to back up. You don't remember reading this in the Strange Story and Amazing Fact book?
No.
Oh man, it's like I remember that picture of him leaping over the wall was like, as a little kid, I was like, dang, what is this thing? You know?
Yeah.
When you get a chance, you got to go dig the book out and go check it out, because that is like that story was the one in that book that I was just riveted to, and every time I would get that book out, I would go read it again. You know, and
That's
I remember
awesome.
talking to my dad about the Spring Hill Jack thing, and we would talk about Spring Hill Jack all the time, you know.
Yeah.
But so here's the thing. I'm not I like where you're going with the supernatural being, but I think we got to give some background for the people, because they might not know anything about Spring Hill Jack.
Yep.
So in the 1830s, I believe the first official naming of Spring Hill Jack was 1837. And he was a being, a person or something, that came in many different variations, but a lot of them were kind of similar. And they always recognized, oh yeah, this is the same guy, no matter how he tried to disguise himself. And so one of the things was he would wear a black cloak, but when he would throw it off, he would practically glow in the dark with a white, weird glow
Yep.
that scared everybody.
Which sounds very host-like to me.
Could be. The other thing that he did is he wore a helmet a lot of times, or some kind of brass. Some people said it was steel, like it was almost armor, and then some people said no, it was actually chainmail that he was wearing. Other people said that he was, or everybody always said he was tall and thin and very agile. He would breathe specifically blue fire at people, and after they got hit with the blue fire, several of them went into epileptic seizures. One lady, her seizures lasted for 3 hours after she got hit with the flames. But the weirdest thing about him, and he had metallic claws that he would tear the clothes off of the female victims that he would attack. And he never killed anybody,
No.
allegedly, but he would always attack people and pretty much brutalize them. And when they were done, they had cuts and scratches all over them.
Okay, so when I read that part, it's interesting because the first thing I thought of is there a story in the Bible where some demonic presence beats the crap out of someone?
Well, there is that. That's
There
true.
is. Remember, it was the
Yeah.
7 sons of Sceva or whatever.
Yeah, and they got
and even the
beat up.
disciples. They,
Yep. Couldn't get the demon out.
Yeah.
The other thing about him is at certain times he appeared, I wrote a list of everything he appeared as. He appeared as a human skeleton when he opened his shirt one time. He appeared as a bear, a bull, a baboon. One time he appeared as Napoleon Bonaparte, which is pretty weird. Another time he appeared as a bear, but then he threw off the bear skin. And of course, the bear and the bull and the baboon all were phosphorescent and glowed in the dark,
Yep.
which is really weird. And then one time, if you watch the Bob Gimlin video, he hired an artist and he gave him just the description of what Spring Hill Jack looked like, and the
Yeah.
artist's depiction was basically Darth Vader. It was like, because he had a thing on his chest that had lights on it that spewed flames. He had a mask that basically he could spew flames out of, and he was like, why did it look like this? But when the other weird thing about him was when the military caught him, or where they were engaged in a battle with him, they said his hands were like icy. They were really, really cold.
Yeah.
Which is pretty strange. A lot of people think that, okay, so at the time there was a group of men who were these rich aristocrats who had nothing to do, and there was a gang of them, and they were called the Mohawks. And so these guys are where they got the phrase painting the town red, because one day they got all liquored up and then they just went out and painted everything red. and then they got thrown, brought up before the magistrate, and he made them pay a fine so that it could be cleaned back up. But they would do all sorts of stuff, and they had a bet going. I think it was the Marquis of Waterford. He had a bet that they could scare 30 people to death. And so all these guys were out trying to frighten people and see if anybody would die of a heart attack, from being scared. And so a lot of people think that it's possible that Spring Hill Jack was just this group of guys and they were all taking turns as Spring Hill Jack. But the one thing that Spring Hill Jack really, really stands out for is the fact that he could leap 12 feet straight up in the air and jump over gates and things like that. And somebody said that they estimated one of his jumps might have been as much as 12 yards. And so a lot of people said, well, he had some kind of device on his feet, and we think that maybe it was springs that he would bounce, and it would cause him to bounce over things. But I'm like, man, I've bounced around on a pogo stick, and I can't do a 12-foot jump on a pogo stick, so I can't imagine how a guy could have done that. But there was one account, and it was, I believe it was the account of the first one that ended up in the paper, and her name was Jane Alsop, and he attacked her on her front porch. Basically, a man came to the door and said, "Hurry, bring a light. We've caught Spring Hill Jack in the lane." And so she went and got a candle and came out. He threw his cloak off, took the candle, and put it in front of his chest, and shot out flames at her, disorienting her. And then he started clawing at her. And they said by the time her sister, and I think it was her mother, got her away from him, he had pretty much ripped all her clothes off with his claws and scratched her neck really bad and cut her up, and she was hurt for several days after. But the dad said he threw his cloak off, and when we started calling for the police, he ran, but somebody came and got his cloak. And it's like, so there had to have been two of them in working as a team.
I figured him out now.
Okay.
He's Gene Simmons, and here's why.
Hey, it could be.
You got the monster, you got the silver, you got the elevated shoes. Wait, you got the blowing of the flame.
The tongue.
You got the damaging of the not only the kid but the mother and the sister.
There you go.
He was known for that. And then then he had Paul Stanley who came up and took his cloak.
That's it, and took his cloak. That's
done.
it. That's
we
how
figured
it
it
works. It was Gene Simmons in a time
Simmons.
machine.
That's right.
Well, that's the other weird thing about. So before Spring Hill Jack came along, there was something called the London Monster.
I remember that
from the late 1700s, and they believe they caught that guy and sentenced him to. It was either
he made flowers.
Yeah, he was a flower seller.
But well, that's the way the guy said it. He goes. By the way, it's funny. The way he says instead of a farmer, he said a farmer.
A farmer.
A farmer.
Yeah, he talks pretty funny.
And he made flyers. Whatever, which that's the thing you put in your car when you go off the side of the road. You light the flares.
He said he got 6 years as a sentence, but another video I watched it said that guy only got 6 months, and that was in the 1790s. So we're talking like 20 years later, Spring Hill Jack comes along, and there were sightings of Spring Hill Jack or something similar all the way up until World War II. So it's like, that's a long time.
Yep.
But after Spring Hill Jack left London, apparently in 1885 there was something called the New Jersey Phantom that terrorized Elizabeth, New Jersey, and he was known to take 12-foot leaps. Then in 1930 there was the Cape Cod Black Flash, who was another guy that could breathe fire and blew fire at people. And then in the World War II there was the Spring Man of Prague, who also could jump 12 feet or more over walls and things like that. So I'm thinking, if this is a person, how did they do it? And that was what I was wanting to find out. So I started looking up the chemical composition of what a blue flame would look like, and so I started.
Hold on
go
a second,
ahead.
because blue flames historically are the stuff of witches. Blue
That's
flames, like,
true.
So the incantation that Marlowe had Mephistopheles give to Dr. John Faustus in order to develop the ability to be invisible went like this. He said, with Pluto's blue fire and Hecate's 3, that no eye may thy body see. And that was the end of the incantation. So Pluto's blue fire was supposedly an element, an evil element of that would concoct demonic or kind of a supernatural evil witchcraft.
Pluto's we know what Pluto's blue fire was. It's sulfur.
Yeah. And so with that, and then of course Hecate's 3 was like the stuff of witches, the 3 witches. So
yeah. So Pluto's blue fire was a reference to sulfur, and the symbol, or the original symbol, had something to do with Pluto. And here's the thing: if you mix sulfur powder with methanol, you get a sort of a sulfur dioxide when it burns, which emits a faint blue flame. But here's what's really interesting about it: if you breathe the smoke or the fumes off of sulfur dioxide, it causes choking, difficulty breathing, burning of the lungs, you collapse, and in severe cases, you go into an epileptic seizure.
Right.
Or something similar to an epileptic seizure, and convulsions, and it can last for a long time. And so I'm like, well, I think if this is a real guy, they probably were, basically breathing fire. And but the funny thing was, to get his first victim, what did he have to do? He couldn't just breathe fire at her. He had to say, oh, hurry up, go get a candle, because we caught Spring Hill Jack. So she runs and gets a candle, and then all of a sudden he could light his contraption and start breathing out fire at her. Yeah. So maybe they had some sort of device. One person said his contraption looked like the old lanterns, like the Green Lantern's lantern. Yeah. And I'm like, well, if they had some sort of a pump attached to it that they could hand pump sulfur methanol out past the flame within it, it would function just like a fire breather with a breathing fire from a torch or whatever. It would work in the same method. Yeah. And my other thinking, the other thought that I have is, it was almost as if wherever he attacked people, it was in a well-planned area.
Okay, so that's what's... Okay, there's two things that are coming to mind for me. One is that... Well, three things. One is that, what if it's the guy from the future, and he's figured out some things, he has some technology? Because it's not just...
Gene Simmons from the future.
Yes, but it's not just... I mean, think of the physics. There's a book called The Physics of Superheroes. I forgot the guy that... I have the book. It's amazing. But in the book, it says that Cyclops from the X-Men, his superpower is not his optic blast, but his overly reinforced neck. Because at the point
they can handle the...
Because he would snap back. Yeah. In the same way, if you don't have a kind of a structured suit, so that when you have propulsion up, the body goes with it, then you're not gonna... I mean, Iron Man... The funny part about Iron Man is that he had to go stiff in order to really control this until the suspension of disbelief allowed him to fly. Right. All right. So you have that. Second thing that I'm thinking is that you have, if it's more of an angelic being, then he's really not subjected to the same gravitational concepts that we are.
He can just blink in and out of existence.
Right. Well, you can leap, like you're on the moon. So we have on the moon, you're able to take those leaps, and you're not it's not fighting the gravity that you're fighting. So it's almost like
Right.
if it's almost like you're a different reaction to gravity, then you're almost like the concept of Superman, that he's able to jump and leap and stuff. But it's not a matter of more muscular propulsion as
Right.
much as you don't have to do as much to resist
Exactly.
our kinds of gravity. And then the third thing, and this goes to what you were just saying, in certain communities. All right, in the Bible where you have the genealogies, and there's a thought that where evil tries to interrupt the genealogies, they're interrupting the overarching plan of what's supposed to happen with these certain people throughout time. And where Satan would try to distort something in order to keep the genealogy from getting to where the Messiah would occur, correct?
Right.
All right. So why is this guy, like, what's the function of this guy? He just kind of beat people up. So it's almost like
He's just causing terror.
Okay, so it's almost like maybe these certain people that he targeted were supposed to do something significant, not maybe in the genealogy, but maybe they were supposed to be doing something that was supposed to be functioning toward a greater good, and he was causing them to strike fear, so so they'd have like agoraphobia, or they wouldn't leave the house, or to create.
It seems like the people he attacked originally were mostly just servant girls.
Yeah.
So to me, I'm like, okay, I can see why some people at the time thought this is just one of those aristocrats playing a prank that's gotten out of hand, because here you have a person that's targeting serving girls, and a lot of the people that wrote into the mayor asking for them to do something were people that were like the heads of these manor houses, and they're like, I'm tired of having my maids all frightened. I want them to get back to work, so you got to do something about this so that it'll stop disrupting these girls, know. And but then it moved on, and like he attacked a butcher, I think, and there were several other different people and then he got bold and he started going after the army, and that was kind of an interesting thing. But to me, it looks like there's an escalation of and I would think an angelic being, why even a demon, why would it start with just women? You would think that he would go for the biggest bang for the buck that he could do like off the bat, you know. But here's my thing: wherever the attacks took place, I'm thinking of this from like a magician's perspective.
Okay.
It was almost as if there was structural setup that he could have set up in advance. So like, let's say that he had some buddies around the corner with a pulley system, and when he comes running, he steps into something that they had laid out, and then they just pull on it, and it jerks him up into, over the fence or whatever. I mean, something as simple as a platform with ropes on it. If he ran onto the platform and they pulled it up, if it's all painted black, black on black is invisible. That's how magician's tricks usually work. And so he's phosphorus, so he's glowing, he's attracting everybody's attention. They don't even notice the platform that's getting pulled up. And it's like, if I was going to be Spring Hill Jack, that's how I would pull it off anyway,
So it's okay. So two things. One is like, I'm trying to think of the theory with like if there was an overarching kind of gestalt thing with going after the servant girls. And the only thing I can think of is at some times in all of civilization, as long as there's been servants, there are times where the servant people are the ones that are spreading information, because they all gathered together. They all knew each other. They'd all gather together to get water, or they'd all, like, it's like the what's it called? Scuttle button. It's like where you're drawing the water is where you give the gossip. And so it's a way that you could spread, even if you look like Tale of Two Cities, where these people are doing their work is where they're spreading the information and letting it go. Or the nursery rhyme of 4 and 20 blackbirds baked in the pie, that the assassination idea. But who's spreading it all? They're all talking about where the king's going to be and where the maids are going to. Right. Okay. But all right, here's the other thing. I don't without this kind of the supernatural or even the the highly technological ability to do the leaping. I'm just trying to figure out where the beating up someone for no. I mean, because there's no stealing, there's no anything.
No.
Okay, in psychology though, there's an aggressive frauderism, where the frauderism is really gaining some sort of kind of sexual euphoria for making contact with someone. A sociopath could certainly also. It's really there's no really formal sociopathic kind of diagnosis, but along the lines of somebody who sees people as objects of their own for their own uses. A frauderism of sorts would beat somebody up for that reason in order to gain some sort of sexual euphoria. That could be it, because that would make more sense.
That would make sense.
He's not.
Well,
what is he gaining from it? Like, what does he walk away with?
But let's put this back into the bet scenario.
Okay.
If this is a bet that these aristocratic guys have going,
Yeah.
then now you're just getting into the basis of a bully.
Yeah.
That they just bullies. I don't know what the psychological issue is behind a bully. Because a lot of times a bully is just like, they'll be your friend one day just because they feel like being your friend when nobody else is around. But then when all the other people come around, they're beating you up and taking your lunch money.
Well, bullies generally come from two branches. One branch is that they are replicating something that's been done to them, and so it's a reverse of power. It's a restoration of so you're taking the subtraction that occurred when you were the victim of the bully, and then turning it into now I'm almost evening off my life because of what was done to me. Brought up. The second one is a really distorted view of relationship, in which you're imposing your relationship on somebody. Because it's weird. Like there are bullies that if you were to squint, like he's always around these guys. Now he's beating them up, but it looks like he can't exist without being drawn to them. But he doesn't know how to interact. He doesn't know how to be, or it could be female too. But they're bullying because they don't know what else to do for a regular relationship.
What movie? There was a movie that was. I wish I could remember, but the point was this guy was always coming to aggravate the other two guys and intimidate them and everything, and then finally they said, wait a minute, we need muscle, let's just go hire this guy.
Yeah.
So they hired the bully, and then the bully was like part of their crew after they hired him.
Well,
I wish I remember what movie that was.
One of the best ones is depictions of the bully is in Tombstone at the beginning. Where he comes in and where the guy comes into where Wyatt Earp goes in and sees the guy at the table. The guy's like, quit blowing your smoke at me.
Yeah.
And he goes, you're sitting in my chair.
Yep.
Is that a fact? He goes, that's a fact. Oh, I'm really scared. He goes,
yeah,
yes, you are really scared.
yes,
See in
you
your
are.
eyes. Stand up. And then he's like,
and he says, well, you sure run your mouth for somebody who doesn't go heels.
Yeah, it doesn't
go heels.
I
don't need it to get a bulge when you got like you.
I pump like you. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Like,
and the thing was, when he left,
Johnny Tyler,
and he came back with his shotgun, he was like, you may go. And then he's like, oh, and leave the shotgun,
and then he just put it on the ground.
And he says, yeah,
he was
did.
really
he rubbed it in.
Yeah.
I remember when I was in school, there were 3 guys that bullied me all the time. And every time I would leave gym class, they would be waiting for me to take my backpack. And they knew that there was never going to be the way our school was set up is we had an old gym, and then behind the old gym was a new gym. And we had our class in the new gym, but we had to walk through the old gym to get out and go. And then we had to go down a really long hall to get back. And these guys would always be waiting for me. And they would grab my bag and they would just play keep away the whole time. And I put up with it for a couple weeks. And one day I was like, I had enough. And I went and they grabbed my bag, and the guy had my bag, and I said, give me my bag back. And he tosses it to his buddy. He says, I don't have your bag. And I said, well, you're going to go get it right now. And he says, well, I don't have it anymore. And I hauled off and front snap kicked him right in the nuts. And he dropped, and the other guys dropped my bag and said, oh, crap. And they ran off. And I said, now get up and get my bag. And the guy crawled over there. And he's like, I can't. I was like, great. So I grabbed my bag and I went to class. Well, the next thing I know, there's an ambulance outside the school, And then a couple minutes later, I'm sitting in English class, and I get a call from the office. I go down to the office, and my principal, he says, "I'm kind of confused. You're a really good kid." And he said, "And I had your dad in school, and I had your mom in school, and I've never had any kind of problem with you or your brother." And he was like, "What in the world happened?"
Yeah.
And I said, "I got sick of them. Every day they wait for me, and they wait to jump me and beat me up, or they take my bag, or they try to steal my money, or whatever." And I said, "I'm fed up with it." And he says, "Okay, go back to class." And I went back to class, and the next thing I knew, those guys weren't at school anymore. And it was like the next year, they all three of them dropped out of school.
Wow.
You know, as they were just bullies. You
What
know,
year
and
was
apparently,
that? What year was
this
that?
was 93, 92, or no, it would have been 90. Must have been 1990.
Because around that time, I remember there was a surge in Indiana out of Baskin Robbins. They had these new Sundays, and their feature was crushed nuts. And I think maybe it had come from
that was it. It came
your
from
school.
That. It must have been. And but the point was, you can't deal with a bully by giving in to him. You know. And
you know, it's interesting. There was this, when I went to middle school. And middle school is chaotic. So chaotic. I mean, it was just like, it was just, there were just parts of town. And I do think that it was like these bullies that were in the school were bullied themselves. And I remember this one guy, Steve, and it was just constant. He was actually smaller than me. He's smaller than everybody, but he was just constantly going up and just like hitting, like punching you. But it was almost like he wanted to fight you so bad, you know, so badly. Like he just wanted it. But everyone was like, "I don't want to fight. Like, what?
Yeah.
I'm just trying to get to class." Like it's almost like
trying to go do my thing.
And then we started. They introduced wrestling several of us, because it was like with the teacher right there, we're like, Steve, I get Steve. And it was like, we'd pin him, and he couldn't punch. Like, he wanted to punch, because we'd get him down, and we'd pin him.
He couldn't do it.
I remember this one guy, Mark, got so sick of him, that Mark, he just lifted him up and slammed him down. And it was like, after that, Steve did not do that. He didn't walk around and start doing it, because everybody was like, we all are like, I get him next.
Now you got a way to go after him.
Yeah.
My dad had a theory. He said that he thinks that a lot of times bullies are kids who they have literally no discipline at home, but something inside of them knows that they need discipline.
Yeah.
And so they go around picking on people,
hoping
waiting for somebody
to regulate them.
To regulate them. And this is my problem with the school policies now, the anti-bullying policies, because they'll flip it, and a kid, like, if I did what I did nowadays, they would kick me out of school and say, "Oh, you're an abusive person." And it's like, no, I was standing up to the bully, but the bullies nowadays are actually protected, and it's not right, you know, and the good kids that stand up for themselves oftentimes get punished for that kind of stuff, and it's like, no, that's not the way it should be, you know.
We're in a strange world right now in which one country can go and attack another one completely, wipe out a bunch of people, and when that other country tries to defend itself, it's pilloried.
They're the bully.
They're the bully. Not just the bully, but pilloried. Like,
have you ever heard The Neighborhood Bully by Bob Dylan? It's all about that. It's like the neighborhood bully, he walks down the block and everybody beats him up. You know, this kind of, I forget what all the lyrics are, but the whole thing is basically about that, where, you know, Israel gets the snot kicked out of it by everybody, but if it tries to defend itself, oh, you're evil, you know. But that's what that whole song is about, you know. But yeah, we live in a weird world, and it comes down to the inversing of everything, which is what Satan likes to do. He likes to flip things around.
The bad thing with the rich businessman thing, whatever that is that what it is? Like rich businessmen?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, they were aristocrats.
Yeah.
So they were like
just wealthy
royalty.
Wealthy.
With
so
nothing to do.
It's just so strange, but it's strange. I mean, the beating up then makes sense, because they're not. I mean, beating up could be, who knows what the level of that is. You could be pushed down.
if you go through this is one of the things that I don't like about certain, um, I don't know how to phrase this, but I've run into people from, I'm assuming they must have come from aristocratic English backgrounds, because everything has a proper way of being, and everything, and we don't mix with those people, and those, no, you shouldn't go out with that person because they're not of our status here in America. And I'm like, dude, we're Americans, we don't have status like that in America. But a lot of the and you see that a lot here in the South, you know, where there's still people trying to cling to this class structure that came from England.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, back to Bob Dylan, he wrote a song about Medgar Evers, and I can't remember the lady, but or was it not Medgar Evers? It was that was a different song. William Zanzinger killed poor Hattie Carroll. The Life and Death of Hattie Carroll, I think, is the name of the song.
I've heard of that. Yeah.
And it was a real story where this guy had a cane and he beat the servant lady at the hotel on the head, and she died like right afterwards, or had a brain aneurysm or something because of it. Yeah. And his defense was, well, she was just a servant at the hotel. I basically should be able to hit her in the head if I want to, you know? And it's like, okay, that is that aristocratic mentality of, we're the upper crust. If we want to have sport and beat these people up and mistreat them and abuse them, well, that's our right, because we are divinely given this higher place, and so everybody else is, you know, beneath us. And it's like, that's so completely and utterly non-Christian.
Yeah.
You know, with Christianity is an egalitarian system, but what bothers me is a lot of times you'll hear people that hate Christianity refer to things, people like that, and say, well, they're Christians and that's what Christians believe. And I'm like, anybody that espouses that is not a Christian.
Yep.
Or else they just really are misinformed and haven't read their Bible.
Yeah.
You know?
That's probably true.
Yeah.
That's probably the most true. Yeah, the Spring Hill Jack is just so funny because it in a way, it's almost like, you know, if it's not technology based and it's not like, you know, celestially Nephilim based, then what we're really looking at is like, you know, one of the first appearances of enhanced human, like they, like, you know, like the Avenger,
like an X-Men,
the Avenger,
kind of
the X-Men, or the all right, it falls into that. Is that this is it's
in my head? I'm thinking, like, I'm trying to think, how would you go about doing this, you know? And it's like, to me, everything he did, if you got enough people helping you, you could pull it off. I mean, the breathing fire, I can do that, you know. The jumping over 12 feet, if I got the right apparatus, I could do that, you know? It's like, it's just really... And then the phosphorus thing, it's like, phosphorus was kind of known at that time, but the types of things that he appeared as, a baboon... Well, if they stole a baboon from the zoo or somebody's private collection and doused it in phosphorus paint, then it's running around and they don't care if they kill the animal or not. Or the big bull that was glowing in the dark, that's another thing that a crazy aristocrat could do.
Yeah.
Just paint a bull and set it loose through the town. And it goes along with several of their other pranks that they were doing at the time too.
And that does make sense. I mean, a lot of those aristocrats, they would go, if they're wealthy enough, they'd go on you know, on safari kinds of things. They'd purchase African animals to keep as pets, if not unless they killed them and then just like, you know, use their hide.
Let's say he has a monkey in the baboon in the cage that he bought, Yeah, and it's getting mean, and they're like, I'm tired of this thing biting at everybody all the time. Oh, I got an idea. Let's just paint it with glow-in-the-dark paint and just send it out through the city to terrorize people. Doesn't that sound like the kind of a thing that some dumb aristocrat might do?
I'm bored on a Thursday. I'm going to set the monkey loose.
Yeah, it just, to me, the whole thing, and then they're saying, oh yeah, well that he had all the markings of Spring Hill Jack. Well, okay, well, if you have a bull, I think the bull was said to have breathed fire too. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, well, if you have a fire-breathing apparatus that you built, that could be so easy to make something like that. It's like, yeah, you strap that around the neck of the bull, and then that's going to scare the bull, and then the bull is going to go on a rampage all over the place, and then before the cops get to the bull, you figure out a way to dispose of it, maybe lead it off a cliff or something, you know. It's like, I could definitely see how that would be something that could be pulled off too.
Yeah.
To me, it just makes sense that Spring Hill Jack was probably a group of these guys pulling a stunt. And I think some people conflate Spring Hill Jack with Jack the Ripper sometimes, but Jack the Ripper was like 50 years later. But again, I think that he could have been an aristocrat too.
But he was killing.
Well, exactly. He took it to the next level.
Yeah.
And that's the problem with this kind of pranking stuff. Pranks always just keep escalating and escalating and escalating. And that was the whole thing with these guys that were beating me up. Like, I knew if they're willing to try to shove me into a locker, if they're willing to hit me, if they're willing to steal something from me, then they're not going to stop and my dad was like, look, man, you're going to have to put a stop to it. You're the only one dealing with it. Yeah. And so I did. And it's like, and I feel like that is the way that you have to deal with anything. If you let it continue to escalate, then it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. And the problem with a bully like that, if it's a bully who's been abused, and you're sitting down and saying, hey, let's talk this through. Yeah. I think you can reach a bully like that. But if they're one of these aristocratic type bullies where they're like, oh, it's my God-given right to be mean to people, you can't fix somebody like that.
I think you're onto something there because technically, or psychologically, with depersonalization and objectification, which means that you're not looking at the humanity of the person where you'd have empathy and sympathy, but rather you're treating them like you would an animal. It really kind of shows that you're able to, that if they have baboons and whatever, and they have they hunt, they capture, they do, and so they treat people the same. They're just objects. They're not people. They're just just animals.
What was this? Was it Conrad that wrote the Dangerous Game, where the guy or the rich guy owned the island? Who was it?
Conrad the
where he had the island, and he would take the people and set them loose on the island, and they had so long, and he would hunt them down or whatever.
Yeah, but that's the
kind of person that we're talking about here. Yeah. Somebody that they're so wealthy that they think they're above everything.
But when those people go and capture animals and bring them back and they keep them, they aren't skilled in training animals to keep, they have. What they do is, since they are their animals and they have them caged, they beat them. If they're not doing whatever, they just beat them. They don't condition them, and they don't have the time for that. They take them,
they don't have respect.
Well, if you take that then and go, what they do over here with animals, they would do with people.
To a person.
The beating up makes sense.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing too. I've seen people that are trainers like that they're just abusive to the animals, like on videos and stuff. And a lot of times the videos are kind of in a way of, look what happens if you mistreat your animal, and then the tiger turns around and eats the guy or something like that. You're dealing with a person that they don't have a proper view of who they are. And so they think, well, I can beat this animal and I'll make this tiger do what I want it to do. And then the tiger eats them, and they're surprised, like, why would the tiger do that? I'm the top of the food chain. And it's like, no, in that situation, the tiger is the top of the food
That's
chain.
right. That's right.
And your lunch. It's just
Yeah.
how it is. I don't care how much money you have, you know? And so it's like, that's why the Bible says that pride goes before a fall.
Yep.
And it's like...
Destruction.
Yes, and the thing is, it's like, you think about that, pride goes. Well, if something is going before something, it's kind of like a procession. You know, like here comes the king, and here's all the procession before him. That's the pride right in front of him. It's going before, and then all of a sudden, his destruction is there. And it's kind of like whenever you see somebody that's that proud, I really feel like we're talking about a different type of bully than the poor kid that just snaps because, you know, his dad's been beating on him or something like that. I think that's a different... Maybe they even need different words to describe them, maybe. You know, because we would call them both bullies, but they're not the same. They're definitely not the same scenario.
It's like a generational curse. It just keeps kind of going through person after person. They keep treating the same way. You know, there's I remember Audra's cousin, Mike Donahue. Hey, Mike. He's listening. He really talks about that. These distorted family system operations for generations in which they're doing the same, like, horrible things to each other. And it's almost like, how do you operate in a family? Well, we do this. This is what we've always known to do. And it's horrible, like the stuff that...
Well, and I know my grandfather came from a family like that.
Yeah.
And when he became saved, it stopped. You know, because God changed him completely, and of course, you know, he still had some of his personality traits that were maybe a little more rough around the edges, but it wasn't at all the same as like what he endured with his dad or what his dad went through. My grandfather's father trained him to be a thief and a con man. You know, that was his upbringing like that, and he was a gambler, and it's like, you know, but Grandpa changed and followed the Lord, and all his children, you know, ended up serving in ministry somehow, and it's like that's what happens. The only thing that can really fix something that's destructive like that, that's inherent in a family, is the Lord.
Yep.
You know, and I think that, like, you can talk to your blue in the face with people, and they can know, well, I need some kind of a change, but I just don't know how it's going to happen. Well, and anybody, you know, might be in a situation where they know something needs to change, but they're not capable of it. That's what like in the 12-step program, the first step is to admit that you can't do it and you need somebody else to do it
higher
for
power.
you.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, I see that these aristocrats definitely could have used some Jesus instead of terrorizing their whole town. But here's another thing that's interesting. Why not turn your abilities of terror against your enemies, like in another state? They're so bored with nothing to do that they turn against their own community.
All right, but that's what we don't know. That's the part I feel like that. Remember that play, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead?
Yep.
And now they give you the backstory of what everything happened, you know, behind that, and then they come.
The scenes.
Yeah, they left, and then they came back, and then that all that. Well, that's what we don't know about what's happening here. I mean, what if they were the servants? So that means that if the servants are there, generally speaking, the people that employ the servants have the money to have servants. Generally speaking, would have some money. So what if there's the aristocrats? It's not just a bet, but it's almost like a way of influencing or harming a rival family, or a family that it could be very much business based, or getting them to fear, and then they're trying to get them to move out of town.
Well, and there's the crux
like
of
Kashmir.
it, I think, right there.
Have you heard of the story of Kashmir?
No, I don't think so.
Kashmir. So there's a large part of Kashmir way back where we're very much like doctors and lawyers, peaceful people, and then this group came in that they came in because they wanted just to kind of take over the area. They wanted the area, and they came in and they just started buying houses. They were kind of bullying in a way that one family would move out, so they'd move in and they'd move in like 20 people in the house, and they would just take and just make noise, make disrupt. So
Drive
finally,
everybody
all
else
the
crazy.
doctors and the lawyers and all these wealthy, peaceful people moved out, and this wretched group moved in and took over Kashmir. And
Sounds
so
like what's happening to my neighborhood lately.
Yeah, but it was very methodical. Like it was chaos. It was
It's like the mob worked that way.
Yeah.
In New York City.
Yeah.
A lot.
But now Kashmir belongs to a certain group of people.
Well, and here's the thing. I think you're onto something, because in that time period, within like 30 or 40 years, London went from being just kind of not a little town, but it wasn't very populated, to suddenly being completely and utterly overpopulated and the most populous city in the world, because everybody thought, oh, if I move to London, I'll get a job.
Yeah.
But when they got there, they realized all the jobs are taken and there's no jobs. So there's poverty everywhere. There's crime everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
There's, people living on the streets and all this kind of stuff. And maybe some of these aristocrats were like, we need to get these people to leave. And this was kind of their solution of thinking maybe we can thin out the crowd. Because their whole thing was, this one bet was, we want to get 30 people to die of fright. And it's like, well, how crappy is that to scare people, to want to scare people to death?
Yeah.
But it's like, okay, but if that's their reasoning and they're sick and tired of the overcrowding and they're tired of all the poor people being around and begging for money from them and all this kind of stuff, then maybe they're looking at it. I mean, I'm not justifying what they're but I'm just trying to understand, maybe this was the seed of what became this bet that these guys had, or this whole thing of, let's terrorize all these people, as a group of people, because they're like, they're not us.
Yeah.
They just came in and invaded our town and, or whatever. I don't know, maybe that's kind of where some of that came
I wish there was
from.
more information on this. I wish there was like a greater... You ever watch that guy, Age of Empires? He's this historian. I think he's a professor at some school, and he tells whatever your knowledge of like especially Middle Eastern history is. He's got a different take, a very unique take on it, but he comes with
cool.
But well, yes and no. It's cool because it's different. Why does he know what nobody else does? Like,
well, that's one or two.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's like, well, this is what happened. Like this, like he was talking about Israel, and he's like, Israel was not monotheistic. It were henotheistic, which means they knew that they had one God, but they knew there were other gods.
And they believed their God was superior.
But they believed their God was superior. But the way he
But
tells
really,
it,
that's how it is.
It is. But the way he
that's
tells
what Heiser
it...
was saying.
I'm sorry?
That's what Heiser was saying, too,
But the way he tells it, he essentially tells it like, don't... Like the Bible's wrong. That's almost like there are other guys. Like,
let me just trash the Bible while I'm at it.
He's trashing and
I
he
don't
goes,
like that.
He gives he challenges a lot of, and he goes, well, what people don't know is this was the group of people. But he's the only one that has this, and it's like,
right?
Where is he getting it from?
The one guy that we were listening to, I didn't send you this other. There's another guy, and they're called let me look it up. Their website is called The Aristocrat.
Okay.
And it's these two guys, and they dig deep. And the one guy is like
heuristic, like people following knowledge.
I'm sorry, I'm saying it wrong. It's Historicrat.
Oh. Well, we just came up with a cool name too, because
the aristocrats.
Heuristic is your ability to determine what how you gain knowledge from something.
Oh, there you go. That's pretty cool.
So a heuristocrat would be a cool name.
That would be a cool name.
Anything.
We need a T-shirt.
They were the aristocrat. Yeah.
But these are the historiocrats.
Yeah, that sounds good.
And these guys, basically, it's two people that live in England, I think.
Yeah.
And they were getting, like, from the library, actual newspaper articles from that time period.
Yeah.
And so they're going through, and the one guy said that there's so much information about Spring Hill Jack and the terror around that time period that it's overwhelming to go through all of it.
Yeah.
And like there's 3 or 4 really big books that have been written that kind of go through the whole history that I would like to read them, but I don't know that I would have the patience to dig into Spring Hill Jack this much, but I'm like, man, there's got to be a lot of info.
It's so fun. It just feels like we're missing something. Like
maybe
the whole story of him has so many different like elements, but there's some overarching something. Whether it's
that's why, like, when they said that he had a thing on his chest that he had to light that then allowed him to breathe fire.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, wait a minute. That's a little snippet, and I think if you went through all the different accounts, you would probably find little things like that when you pieced it together, it probably would make more of a like. There's got one of those aristocrats was probably inventing stuff in his basement.
Oh well, remember when the guy was talking, he said a lot of guys. There's a lot of people employed there were the gas lamps.
Yes.
And remember the guys were saying that they were in charge of igniting, maintaining,
and what if one of the aristocrats owned that company?
Or basically they're lighting fires, they're controlling fire. So it's like it was oil. So they could take that. Let me see if I could blow fire from that. So
that's what I use when I do fire breathing.
Yeah.
I use lamp oil mixed with high proof alcohol.
Yeah.
And to a certain, I'm not going to tell anybody what the ratio is, so they don't go out and blow themselves up.
Yeah.
But that's what you use when you're breathing fire.
Yeah.
Anyway, and so it's kind of like, I'll have to put a video of me breathing fire in this episode.
Do that.
That would be pretty fun. But
if we get a certain music to go now, I think I have a pedal.
Oh yeah. Oh, it must be that time. Let's see here. Yes, there he is. Our hero, Josh Scott.
All right, Josh. Here's what I have. In honor of the Spring Hill Jack, I think we do the Spring Hall Jack reverb.
There you go.
So Spring reverb, Hall reverb, and the port that you plug into is blue. So it's a but blue
it has
jack.
2 red dots on the top.
2 red dots. No, the 2 red dots at the top
The
tell you
eyes.
it's on. So one for the spring, one for the Hall reverb.
There you
Spring
go.
Hill Jack, but it's a blue jack.
And when you plug in the expression, the Nimrod pedal
that we talked
about last time, when you plug that in, then what it does is it changes your reverb setting. And it
how
much reverb you're using
quickly from low to 12, really quickly,
real fast.
That pops you up.
Yeah, so it can't end at 10. It has to end at 12.
It has to have a boost.
Yes. There you go.
Because the whole idea of him is not only the spring, which is reverb.
Yes.
Heel, but really Hall. But then the boost. It has to have a boost.
I like that. And, the thing is, too, like, at the very extreme end of the spring, it has to sound like, surf guitar.
Oh,
and then the Hall would be its own thing, but yeah. And it's got to sound better than the other crappy spring pedals that are on the market.
Yeah, that's not going to
Some
work.
of them just don't sound right.
Yeah. Come on, JHS.
Okay, we got to plug some of our stuff, too.
That's right.
If you like the Spring Hill Jack thing, you can go check out the article at hiddencitadel4.wordpress.com. And it's not just the Spring Hill Jack article. There's a lot of other articles there that are interesting that I think you're going to like. But if you really love us, you can go to redbubble.com and buy one of our t-shirts. And I probably need to make a Spring Hill Jack t-shirt. That would be really cool.
And the aristocrat. Let's get that.
Aristocrat,
Because
yes.
someone's going to hear this. They're going to make their own Aristocrat.
They're going to do their own Aristocrat.
And we just came up with that, and it's better than anybody else.
It's ours. We're keeping it.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of ours, we've got this wonderful book called The Encyclopedia of Weird Crap. I actually happen to have my copy.
Yep.
Right here. The Encyclopedia of Weird Crap. And I've been working on Volume 2. And I've also been working on, I finished up, this is coming out August 1st, my Ren Fair Magic book. And there will be decks of cards that are specific for Renaissance Fair performers that you will be able to get from my blog, Willie Minnick's, at the same place, wordpress.com. I think it might be Minnick's Music. Anyway, it's in the book, and there will be I've got some really cool decks of cards that I've been designing that have like Renaissance Fair characters
on cool.
them, and I've got like trick decks that make, the one's called the Faded Beauty deck, where this princess actually fades into view, or you can make her fade out of view. There's a deck that's like a multi-purpose deck that has like 30 or 40 tricks that you can do with the one deck. I'm going to make a pirate deck, and then I'm going to have expansion packs that you can buy that you, if say you want to add to your deck to, to do other tricks or things like that, you'll be able to buy these expansion packs that you can do. So they're all going to be listed in my store on my blog too. So that's a pretty cool thing. And then what else? So we got the book, we got our t-shirts, we got the WordPress.
We got
everything.
Come find us and like us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube.
Please share the YouTube videos too. Somebody was telling me that it's kind of important to ask people to like and subscribe because that tells the algorithm. And you know what? We have gone up to like 22 or 25 subscribers now.
Nice.
And we haven't even hit our 50th video yet. I mean, we've recorded our 50th video, but the 50th video hasn't come out yet. And usually they say it takes between 50 and 100 videos to get traction. So if you know anybody, if you're one of our regulars that are watching and you know anybody that likes this kind of weird stuff, please send the videos to your friends, because we can only do so much. We need you guys to actually help us get it out there. So like, subscribe, hit the bell, send it to all your buddies. And if there's somebody out there that wants to do Instagram for us, let me know, because I hate making shorts. I just never know what part of the video to cut out and make into a short. You know?
I guess it's. I feel like the best parts is if it's like the last 10%, right before we promote some of the merchandise.
Yeah.
It's like
or
right
do our
before
Josh
that.
Scott pitch.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the only part we should cut out.
Right,
just the Josh Scott pitch. One of these days we're going to get a cease and desist letter from Josh Scott.
In a good way.
Yeah, stop using me.
Stop saying my name.
Stop pitching pedals at me, please.
I'm going to go to Guitar Center in Danbury, Connecticut, people. And the Guitar Center there's a doppelganger of Josh Scott. And
pitch him to him.
I told him. That'd be funny. Yeah, I am.
We have a pitch for you.
I was like, I went in there. I was like, do you know who Josh Scott is? And he goes, I mean, because it's a common name. It could be anybody.
Right.
It could be a kid from his high school. And he goes, no. I go, from JHS Pedals. He goes, oh yeah, I know that guy. I go, you look exactly like him.
That's funny.
And what's funny is when someone hasn't heard something like that, they're like, really?
Yeah, right.
He didn't say that. He was like,
yeah.
And I was like,
you know what's probably going to happen is Deglin is going to take all of our ideas, and he's going to start making his own pedal company.
He's already started. Get ready.
And it'll be Josh's rival. Actually, Josh, if you actually are watching, we got a kid that probably should be working for you.
And he knows, he's seen all of your stuff. He knows everything about you. Yeah.
And this guy would be a great asset. I don't know if he wants to move to Kansas or wherever the heck you are, but but anyway.
All right,
somewhere out in the middle of anywhere. But anyway, that's it. So you guys have a great week. Stay in the Citadel
because night is coming.
The watchman replies, morning is coming, but night will soon return. Silly.